Hello, awesome people. I hope you're having an amazing day today. Today we're taking a look at the novella called The Dealings of Daniel Kassarich. It was published by Fritz Leiber. It was actually published posthumously in the late 90s. He died in 1992, and he published even in the 90s. He started getting published in 1939 in the pulp era, and he got published in every decade from the 30s to the 90s before he died. It's very, very consistent, and he had a lot of works during that era. For you folks, this is a horror that was published, that he wrote a long time ago, was published by his estate after he died posthumously. I said it's horror first, although I would say it has a science fiction grounding. There's some horrors that are just more like traditional, that are like gothic horrors that might have vampires or zombies or something, or ghosts, that feel more in the fantasy gothic genre. And then there are horrors that are more like, like psychological, that don't have a deep, dark secret to them. This has a science fiction underpinning to it. So I would say it's in the science fiction subgenre of horror, but I'd say it's horror first for you folks. Which is appropriate because he was a protege of H.P. Lovecraft, who wrote and created the Cthulhu mythos. He was a big horror writer in pulp era too. He died in 1937, a couple of years before Fritz Leiber published his first short story, which was a fantasy short story, Two-Sided Adventure, that created the Gray Mouser and Fafhrd series that he's definitely well known for today. This guy's won a lot of awards. He's won Stoker's in horror. He's won 6 Hugo Awards. He's won awards in lots of different places, and he's in the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Hall of Fame. So he's a big name in the field. I picked this up a few years ago, about 10 years ago or so, and I read it as soon as it came in the mail. And I just finished reading all this Fafhrd and Gray Mouser stuff, 4 volumes worth of stuff. So I decided to stay with him since I was already in him. I picked this up and reread it again for the second time for you folks. The Dealings of Daniel Kassarich. So this novella took me about an hour and 50 minutes long. It's about 115 pages long. It starts on page 11 and ends on page 125. And then it has about. So it took me about. I split up in the 2 days. It has a lot of sort of stylized pictures, and there's a lot of chapters, and the chapters are pretty short, and then there are page breaks between it. So it's a pretty fast read. It doesn't even take you 2 hours for you to knock off this novella. That it was pretty quick for you folks. So I knocked it out pretty quickly for the second time. I definitely enjoyed it. As a reminder, I keep my reviews spoiler free, so we won't be doing a deep dive into what actually happens in the plot, but basically what winds up happening. Our point of view character it's been 10 years since he graduated from college with 2 great friends that were his roommates. He lives on the East Coast, and he has a writing career. The other 2 have moved over to the West Coast in a town near Hollywood called Smithville that they both moved to. One of them married. He became a doctor of medicine, and the other one is much more smarter than the other 2, and he's more of a scientist, and so forth, with some darker aspects to him. That one is Daniel Kassarich, the one around whom the title of his novella is The Dealings of Daniel Kassarich. He's that one for you folks. So what's going to wind up happening is that the wife of the doctor, Ellis, has died. And he writes a letter to our point of view character, who's the writer in New York, and she decides to go visit him and also pay a visit to his old friend Kassarich, who's never seen either of them in the last 10 years since they all graduated from college, and then they both went to the West Coast, and he stayed on the right coast. So I felt that's kind of fun. So now he's going to get caught up with them and so forth. And about 5 pages in, he's arrived at Smithville. After a weird journey, and some unusual things will begin to happen. He's going to begin to see stones appear that trace him, so he follows it, and it takes him into the place where his wife died. She died after eating a poison orange from an insecticide that was sprayed on the poisons on the oranges in an orchard. So she died after reading a book and going out for a refreshment. Now. So he is led to that place by the strange appearance of these strange red sandstone rocks in the ground that led him to this place from Kassarich's house, where he was going to go start because he didn't want to check in on Ellis first. because, Alice just had his wife died a couple of days ago. So that would obviously be pre-posted. So he wants to check in with Kassarich first. So those weird things are happening, and then obviously we'll find out what's happening and so forth. And then so I'll leave you there. And that's pretty cool. That's fun. I liked it. It's a fun little sort of major thing. If you're interested in taking a nice little side trip, obviously, it's well written because it's him, but there's obviously reasons why it wasn't published during his lifetime. I don't think it's like the best novella ever or the best horror novella, right? It doesn't go into some great places. It doesn't do any new things. It doesn't have anything fun to say. It doesn't have an unusual twist at the end that you didn't see coming, right? So I wouldn't say that this is compelling read or anything. But if you're interested in checking out a horror novella by a guy who's got 1 Stoker Awards in the horror genre for awards for you folks, then this is definitely worth your time. But I'm just going to be giving this a 7 out of 10. Rather than something higher. And in fact, I read it like 10 or 12 years ago when I first bought it, and I'd mostly forgotten it, although I was reminded pretty quickly. So that's that's another reason it was probably more of a 7. It's not this classic, right? It was like it's unpublished. It was like, oh my God, this is so great, right? And the author just didn't appreciate how good it was, like H.P. Lovecraft's The Shadow over Innsmouth, which was just not really published that much in his time. But it's a classic, and many fans consider it one of his best works. But, he just didn't appreciate that much, right? But it was a classic. So it's not a classic like that, in my opinion. Although your mileage may vary. So there you go. I'll go ahead and leave you to it. Have you read The Return? The Dealings of Daniel Kassarich, rather? If so, what'd you think about it? Did you agree or disagree with my 7 out of 10? Would you like to talk about spoilers or the ending? Let's do it in the comments below. As a reminder, this channel's name is The Worst Thing About New Books, a quote by a French philosopher named Jacques Joubert, who said that the worst thing about new books was that they kept you from reading the old ones. And somebody got started publishing in the 30s and up through the 90s. Posted as much as this guy did, doing a deep dive into his stuff is definitely a key part of this channel where my passion comes from. So, if you enjoyed this, why not hit that subscribe button? Or if you're feeling frisky, hit the bell button too. After all, there should be a lot more these reviews to follow. And then finally, I just want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and investing it watching my video. We all have so many things happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spent this time with me is incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it. Thanks again, and have an amazing day.